Good morning. So I'm gonna continue with Vimala's book, Intensive Self-Education. This is called On the Level of Human Relationships. Receptivity. The purpose of life is living. Life is a relationship, and living is a movement of getting related to and allowing oneself to be related by someone else. If someone wants to relate himself or herself to me, there must be willingness, an openness, and receptivity on my part. Then I have to stop moving and let myself be operated upon by the facts around me, by the human beings around me, and by the non human species. Non action for the sake of reception and action for the sake of getting related to others. Both are required. One educates oneself to be receptive. One enters into relationships with human beings not for self-centered purposes, but in order to learn and to have an encounter with the human mind. The act of receptivity and the attitude of learning implies that when with others, one looks and perceives without bringing in the screen of one's likes and dislikes. When one can look without one's subjectivity getting mixed up in the perception, then one will be able to learn and respond correctly. The content of humility is receptivity. We're usually receptive with a motive. Motives create a direction, and therefore receptivity moves in that direction, which is exclusive. Receptivity is thus limited by our ambitions, wishes, desires, tendencies, and inclinations. Humility is total uninhibited receptivity, without fear or ambition. Then the mystery of the totality of life can operate upon us without any resistance whatsoever. If there are resistances within us, life cannot operate upon us. The acquisitive tendency and comparative approach to oneself contaminate our perception and pollute our responses. They don't allow us to learn or be in a state of true receptivity. Fearlessness. One educates oneself to relate to others without being on the defensive or being afraid. In the company of others, we suffer from instinctive fear because we anticipate hurts and wounds. Anticipation of hurts and wounds stimulates impatience. A person who is afraid inwardly instantaneously becomes aggressive. You are afraid of being hurt, and to defend yourself, you are in a hurry to assert or get through the relationship before you get hurt. It expresses itself in verbal indifference, harshness, and abruptness of behavior. In sum, the psychology of assertion and aggression expresses itself in verbal indifference, hardness, harshness, and abruptness in behavior. And in others who are less impatient, who have less vitality, it expresses itself in passivity. Being aggressive and passive are the obverse and converse of the same thing. Because when you shrink with fear, withdraw into passivity, you can't look at the other persons, you can't listen. There is no receptivity in the passivity of withdrawal. So every moment, every movement, every relationship gets polluted by the attitude of fear. Now, fear and love are incompatible, as the whole being is saturated by what we call fear. The energy of love has no opportunity, no scope to get activized and mobilized within us. There is a way of living which is neither aggressive nor passive, free from all such fears and anticipations. One is totally present at every moment, in every movement, pouring one's being into every relationship. Then one lives and dies to the sensation of pleasure and pain created in that relationship. So one is free to move into another relationship and meet the other situation in a virgin state. When one is free from such anticipations and such fears, one is relaxed. The relationships are the movements of relaxation. Your inner awareness does not get disturbed by being in the midst of people. You are with them, and still you are with yourself. You are at the center of your being, totally relaxed. In this relaxation, there is an equipoise. In the relaxation, the perfume of love is still there. Image-free relationships. One educates oneself not to pass judgment on the behavior of others and to be free of emotional reactions towards the behavior of others. If you arrive at a judgment about someone, then you have built an image of the person. Building an image means nothing else but arriving at a judgment about the other person. Your own judgment will block your path and you will not be able to meet the other person. In between, and you will, okay. If you arrive at a judgment about someone, then you have built an image of the person. Building an image means nothing else but arriving at a judgment about the other person. Your own judgment will block your path, and you will not be able to meet the other person. In between the other person and yourself will be the image that you have built. When I move in relationship, I carry images with me, both about myself and about others. I also create images about other people based on my previous experiences with them. I build up the images and store them very carefully. Then when I try to relate to them, I'm relating to the images. And naturally, my expectations are based on the images that I've built about them. When the person doesn't satisfy my expectation, I will be hurt. The person was or is what he or she has been. Through expectations, through images of other people, and through images of myself, and the business of projecting them all the time, I sow the seeds of psychological misery and suffering. We are so self-centered that our perceptions are self-centered perceptions. And a self-centered person can never look at anything in life. A self-centered person cannot get related with other human beings because he is so busy with his own self, his ego, his likes, his dislikes, his thoughts, his emotions. We create screens of resistances and adjustment of mutual resistances in so called relationships. You have to keep open, receptive, flow with the change of life without building up images of yourself and others. Then there will be no fear. Initiative free relationships. One educates oneself not to take initiative in psychological relationships unless it is warranted. We have to learn to be in the austere state of observation, aware of everything that's happening around us, but not reacting, not taking initiative. The line of demarcation between taking initiative and asserting oneself, between assertion and aggression, is very thin. Without you knowing it, you become assertive and aggressive. That's how we sow the seeds of our own psychological misery and suffering. Much of the suffering is man made, stimulated and provoked by the mind, by our attitude. One educates oneself to create a space around oneself, to be the smokeless flame of alert attentiveness, not eager to react, to take initiative, intervene or interfere in the lives of other people. Seek not and reject not. One educates oneself in human relationships not to seek out anything, nor to reject anything that comes. There are areas in life where planning and organizing are impossible, and such an area is the area of human relationships. There, living with the present, living with the now, is the only way out of this vast complexity of human relationships. There, no choice, no preparation, no manipulation, and no thought of investment is possible. Relationships are not investments for the future, in quotes, quotation marks. Let me have the person with me so next year he or she can help me or save me from boredom or loneliness. Such thoughts cannot enter the mind. In relationships, there cannot be the idea of the future and using the present relationship for future ends. In relationships, no thought of the future should have any scope. In fact, the future does not exist, except on the physical level, where we are governed by the frame of a physical body which must be fed, clothed, and sheltered. On the physical level, advanced planning and organizing is necessary. In any other area, it is not necessary. So you take life as it comes. You don't seek and you don't reject. There is no process of becoming through relationships. One is willing to meet people, face their idiosyncrasies, their temperaments and habit patterns. One does not have to put up with them. One notices the good and the bad points, but there is no reaction. Flowing with the stream of life. To live is to be related. In relationships, there can be either bondage or freedom, while in aloneness, there is only existence. Relationships are very complex. There are many kinds of relationships. It may be to myself, to my body, to the elements around me, to my family, other people. To live life is to go through these relationships. But there are many ways in which we get stuck in relationships, where we impede the flow of life, and thus we lose the opportunity that life has given us to live, to relate. And every such moment lost is an opportunity lost forever. The inquirer will have to observe and see where the stream of life gets obstructed in relationships. If the relationships are approached in an inattentive, preoccupied, anxious state of mind, and there are reactions out of habit, it brings about inattention and the flow of life gets obstructed. When you do things automatically, you get used to them, and therefore one may not be totally present. The mind gets a chance to wander away from the situation. To be totally present in whatever we are doing implies that the mind in its totality is there. If you are totally present with the moment, the relationship pouring all if you are totally present with the moment, the relationship pouring all your energy and alertness into the movement you okay, sorry, bit of a strange sentence, but here it comes. If you are totally present with the moment, the relationship pouring all your energy and alertness into the movement, then you finish with it. If that movement, that relationship brings pain, you live through the pain. If it brings pleasure, you go through the pleasure and die to it as soon as you go through it. Then there is an end to it. No residue is collected in memory, and we are free to meet the next moment, the next relationship. So when we are interested in self-education, in making one's being very sensitive and alert, we should explore the possibility of being free from every habit, from every mechanical activity, and being totally present in whatever we do. If there is selectivity in relationships, the field of living gets narrowed down by the personal likes and dislikes, instead of being kept open to all that life brings. We have so many likes and dislikes stored in the non-verbal levels of the subconscious that we cannot just look or listen. Likes and dislikes are like blinds. They don't allow us to see the whole. The total action of looking and listening can take place if there is a love for life and a reverence for life, for the mystery of life, for the overwhelming complexity and interrelatedness which is the content of life. And when there is love, you cannot do a wrong thing. Then perception happens, listening takes place, responses take place. If the mind carries hurts around, repeatedly thinking about them and forming grudges against others, they become like mental blood clots in the psyche and so obstruct the stream of life. When there is insistence that others should accept and follow one's ideas, it prevents communication. Freedom from insistence is possible by understanding the nature of thought. Once we understand that thinking is a mechanical, repetitive activity, that thoughts are a reaction of memory, of the conditionings engraved in the body, that thoughts do not belong to us, then there will be no reason to be insistent and feel these are my thoughts and others should accept them. When there are attachments to others, there is no flowing with life. But the mind cannot be free from such attachment by running away from the things that create the attachment. If one keeps in mind that this body can die any moment, it may help. It may help one to be free from attachment. Relationships are the opportunity for self-discovery. An inquirer needs to observe from morning to night where he's getting stuck in relationship, where he's reacting out of habit, and where he is inattentive. Maybe until here this morning. The next section, because it's the end of this particular section on human relationships. Next section is reasons why we find sadhana difficult, why we find spiritual practice difficult. So I hope you have a great day. Bye for now.